Okay, so today we're talking about the three worlds of the shaman and astral projection. Before we get into this, I do want to let you know that I'm using a lot of vocabulary from different paths to kind of put all of this information together. If you were to go and talk to like a traditional shaman person, they probably wouldn't use words like astral projection. But I like to use the vocabulary that people tend to be most familiar with, so that's what we'll be using. Um, anyways, the three worlds of the shaman, we have the upper world, the middle world, and the lower world. Um, and you can think of them as distinct areas that are connected energetically. Um, but the more and more you explore them, I think you'll find that there's layers to the upper world, there's layers to the middle world, there's layers to the lower world, and they kind of blend together. It's more of a spectrum of different dimensions, basically, that we can access with our consciousness. And so that's sort of what you're doing when you're shamanic journeying and listening to the drum. You can take your body with you, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But starting out, it's most people have the easiest time taking just their consciousness. And some people dance out of their body as they're listening to drums. Some people just get up and walk out of their body as they're listening to the drums. Whatever feels most comfortable for you. Some people fly. I recommend that you experiment with different ways of exiting the body. But so once you've exited your body, your consciousness is kind of free from your physical form. That's astral projection, right? And so the astral projection is your vehicle for traveling through these different worlds. And my recommendation is that as you're traveling through these worlds, you kind of remember the pathway you took so that you can come back along the same pathway, especially as you're starting out. Because as we move through the spiritual world, we're kind of leaving little energetic breadcrumbs behind. And it's helpful to kind of pick that energy back up as we come back out of the trance. When we don't do that, sometimes we can feel a little disoriented, groggy, tired, run down, because we've left pieces of our energy, in the spiritual realm. So we want to bring all of that back with us. As you continue to practice and become more comfortable gathering your energy on your return, you can ask your spirit guides to quickly transport you, whoosh, and they'll kind of help you scoop it up as you go. You can start out doing that even if that's more comfortable for you. All right, slight interruption there. So we were talking about the astral body returning. Oh, so when you return, you just want to return along that same pathway. Try and pick up all your energy as you return. There's different ways of doing that. Again, experimenting with exiting and re-entering the body. Definitely finding the pathway that is most comfortable for you. I also recommend looking up other people's journeys and reading about them, because sometimes that can be helpful to expand our mind on what is possible for us to experience. And then in terms of journeying safely, where the mind goes, the energy flows. Right? So if you're feeling nervous or scared or anything like that, it's probably not a good time to journey, because you will then encounter that type of energy as you journey. That's not to be said that you shouldn't ever do that, right? It can actually be incredibly healing to say, especially with anxiety. For me personally, that's a really powerful way to deal with my anxiety, is to journey, to go to where my anxiety is and ask it, what gifts do you have for me? Why are you here? And try to figure out, is this helpful or is this inhibitive? That kind of stuff. Just knowing that you are always in control of your journey. You are your greatest spiritual authority. And if you encounter an entity that you don't want to interact with, just say nope and walk away. You can always return to your body and sage and do a sound cleansing, cast a circle, whatever makes you feel safe. And you're welcome to do that before journeying as well, if that helps you to get into that relaxed mindset where you can meet with your guides and have a casual, fun conversation, right? Because the goal is that it should never really, the goal is to grow, which sometimes is uncomfortable, but we shouldn't be growing in ways that are causing us undue stress, or mental anguish, right? Our spiritual journey should always be like filling our cup and helping us to become better than we are. It shouldn't be stressing us out and weighing us down. Not that we won't go through periods where we feel a little bit of spiritual burnout, right? But that's important to keep an eye on too. It's like, oh, am I doing too much spiritually? Do I need to spend more time in the physical realm? Maybe doing some yoga, maybe talking to some friends, having some tea, something like that, right? Anyways, so being safe is all about just knowing that you are a sovereign being and that you always have the power to say no thank you, to remove yourself from any situation, and to tell other energies, like, I don't want you in my energy. Like, get away from me. And your most powerful, like, protection spell is just no, right? No. In the spiritual realm, we have complete autonomy and free will. Like, nobody can make us do anything we don't want to do. There's not even like physics in the spiritual realm, right? We can fly. So you are totally in charge and in control. And so being spiritually safe is really about like building that confidence in yourself to be like, no, to know that you are in control of your own journey. And so that's definitely something we'll be working on throughout this course as well. But I think having that foundational knowledge really sets a lot of people up for success. Let's see, so as we're traveling through these different realms, we can go to lots of different places, physical places, like we can visit other planets, we can visit jungles, we can go to non-physical places, like the spirit of the jungle, right? Like a more, instead of a specific like physical jungle, is more like the energy of jungliness that you can visit, right? We can visit ethereal realms, right, where there is no form and it's mostly like sounds and lights and cloudiness. That's more in the upper realm, right? And so I think sometimes it's helpful to think in terms of frequencies, that the upper realm tends to be more ethereal and high frequency, more liminal, where it's less defined. Things are more fluid. The beings that you meet there tend to be of a higher echelon. But it's important to remember that, like, spiritual beings, even if they want to help you, sometimes they don't know the best way to help you. They are not physical beings, right? So sometimes they don't understand, like, the limitations of being physical. So when you're working in the upper realm, sometimes they'll ask you to do things that it's like, well, I have to keep my job. I have to put food on the table, right? So, but they don't necessarily understand, and they'll say, well, like, oh, well, is that really something you need to concern yourself with? Everybody dies. It's like, yeah, well, everybody dies, but I don't need to die tomorrow, right? So knowing too that, like, if you're working with an entity, you always have the power to tell it, like, hey, that's not like a reasonable request of my time and energy. And maybe that means that relationship's just not going to work for you, but you always have the power to decide, like, is this something I want to pursue? So that's the upper realm, tends to be the sort of where deities live, a lot of like archetypes, the more ephemeral spirits. The middle world tends to be more where you're going to meet like spirits of the dead, the ancestors, things that people would consider ghosts or demons, which, that's all a matter of terminology. You can decide how you want to categorize things in the spiritual world based on your own experience. For me, like, it's not that I don't believe in demons, it's just that the things that people call demons are not demonic to me, I guess. So, it's a matter of perspective on, like, what is evil, what is good, what does that mean, right? And so that's a big part of becoming a witch, is really like exploring that for yourself, and like, what does that mean? Where does that boundary lie for you? Because a lot of times the world is actually shades of gray, right? It's not as black and white as we like to pretend it is, in our egoic mind that likes to categorize, right? And then the lower world is usually more, it's going to be more natural spaces. The middle world is the closest to our physical reality, so you can actually, that's what people consider, like, most people when they're talking about astral projection, they're usually talking about being in that middle realm and like visiting their friends, or like flying through space, things like that. But as I said, there's the ancestors and the ghosts there that you can encounter. If you want to develop your mediumship skills, you'll probably spend a lot of time in the middle realm. And then the lower realm is a lot of land spirits. So like that spirit of the jungle, or river spirits, or, jaguar king or queen. Typically any animals that you encounter in the lower realm are gonna be like, it's not the for example, a dog. If you met a dog spirit in the lower realm, right? If you met a dog spirit in the middle realm, it could be that it was your pet that passed away, right? In the lower realm, it's more likely to be like the spirit of all dogs, like dog energy, dog archetype, less so than a specific dog entity. I hope that analogy makes sense. So in a lot of cultures, they talk about the shaman's tree that connects these three worlds, right? And the upper world's kind of up in the branches, the middle world is sort of the trunk, and then the lower world being the roots in the earth. And I do think that that's a really helpful visualization, because that is a lot like how the energy is. At the top, it's a lot more spread out, and then when we come into the middle, it's a little more solid and okay, I'm familiar with what this is and how this works. And then in the roots, it's very dark, it's heavy, but not necessarily in a bad way, in a very nurturing and restful way. All right, so most people, when they start out in their journeying, you're going to be listening to a track of drumming. If you have a drum, you can drum for yourself. I highly recommend it. And in fact, a lot of people find it easier to focus on journeys because they tend to be pretty high energy if they do some amount of tactile feedback, either drumming on a book in front of them, the table in front of them, or I like to rock, I like to dance a little, whatever feels best for you. Some people lie totally still. In a lot of cultures, it's common to sing your journey, and that's actually I don't know, I did quotes because they actually do sing their journey, and it's I'm dancing out of my body, I'm dancing around a fire, I'm meeting my ancestors, I'm going towards the jungle, now I'm seeing the jaguar queen, and she is telling me this and that, it's very literal, singing of what you're seeing, or the energy you're interpreting, or the sensations you're getting. So whatever feels most comfortable for you and helps you to focus best is what I recommend. Again, experimenting to find what's comfortable for you. But typically when we enter into the trance state, when we start to get into that space, what we're first going to see is our own inner landscape. And if you've been meditating for a while, you've probably visited this landscape before. It may or may not look like something that you've seen in real life, a place that you've been that feels really spiritual and powerful for you. It may be based on a cartoon that you've seen that you just wow, that's really beautiful, that looks like a really spiritual place, and whatever. The thing about this space is you are totally in charge of it, and you can construct it however you want. So if you get there and there's nothing, wow, you have a blank canvas to work with, right? You can put whatever you want in there. For me, it's a big open meadow in the middle of a forest. There's a lot of trees all around it. There's a well, and there's one big tree. Anyways, so you can really do whatever you want in that space and create it however you like. A really powerful exercise is to actually take your body with you into this space. And again, we'll talk more about that later. But to take your body into this space and actually construct a temple or a hut or a place where you go every time you meditate, in order to connect with your divine self. And this becomes a really powerful tool, because then anytime during the day where you need to access that divine self, you can just bring that space to mind, and often it'll help you energetically align to ground and center into that space. It's also just a really, I don't know, it's really comforting. It's really nice to just have to know okay, you know what, I'm stressed out right now, I know that how I can handle that and how to deal with it. It's a very comforting thing. Anyways, so most people end up in this space that is sort of their own astral realm, the inner landscape. And in order to enter the shamanic realm, to get into the three worlds, which are like very close to our own astral space, we have to create sort of a doorway, and that can be done any way that you like. I make a literal door in my space. It's just like a freestanding door in the middle of the field is what I like to make. It's very beautiful and ornate, but some people use mirrors. They'll like construct a mirror that they step through. Some people within their hut. This is one that I do use sometimes in my own like astral temple. I have like a fireplace that, like, if I go up the chimney, it takes me to the upper room. If I go down into into the fireplace, which kind of, now that I'm saying that out loud, like kind of doesn't make sense, but whatever. It's kind of like going down into a cellar, and that takes me to the lower realm, and then using the doorway in the temple. Sometimes I can also use that door to enter the middle realm. So no matter what you choose, how you choose to do it, you need to create a pathway for yourself. And a lot of times in the beginning, it'll feel like, am I just imagining this? Am I just making this up? So what I really, really encourage you to do is, as soon as you come out of the trance state, as soon as you're done journeying, to write everything down with as much detail as possible. Because you'll come back and read it a week later and be like, dang, there's no way I imagined that, because my imagination is not that good. I mean, I don't know about you, but like my storytelling imagination, if I'm like egoically trying to control that imagination, it's not great. Stuff doesn't happen, right? But when I allow my imagination to flow, and when I allow things to come to me, when I allow the images to intuitively form, it is super creative. It's crazy, like some of the things that come up. And like whether or not you believe that is totally internal or you are connecting to something larger is kind of irrelevant. The fact of the matter is that you're receiving some sort of information, some sort of wisdom from somewhere that should be helpful to you, right? If you went in with the intention of like, I want help, you're gonna receive some sort of help. So once you're in this astral space, once you've kind of gotten into your trance state and you're in your astral space, you've decided how you want to move into the next realms, you're going to open that pathway, that doorway, that tunnel, that mirror, whatever it is. It's helpful to decide beforehand, like, oh, during this journey, I'm going to go to the upper realm, or I'm going to do this, or I want to just meet with my spiritual guides, I want to just call them to my temple. It's really helpful to have that intention beforehand, so that once you get into that state, you're not like, let me just look around, and what should I do here? Because the journey is a limited amount of time too, right? So you do want to make the most of it by just going in with some amount of intentionality. But in the beginning, I do think it is helpful to go in with an exploratory spirit. Like, I just want to see what's going to happen this time. I just want to see who I can meet. I just want to see if I even can see anything, right? And that's a big thing too. Like, you try not to place too many expectations on what the experience will look like or be. Because, sometimes you'll have super vivid, super intense journeys, and then sometimes you'll have like nothing journeys, right? And that's okay. It happens to all of us. I've been journeying for like 5 years now, and sometimes they're really intense. Recently for me, they haven't been as intense. It's more like I get a flash of a symbol, or I get a flash of a word, or like a feeling. So sometimes, our guides feel like it's good for us to kind of deal with things on our own and not rely on them as much, right? They might step away a little bit. They're always going to come back to us too. And if we really feel distressed and we really call upon them, they're never going to abandon us, right? There are times when like a certain spiritual guide, like maybe we've come to the end of the teaching that they have a soul contract with us for. So they might say like, hey, we've been working together for a while. You've learned everything that I had to teach you. I'm going to move on, right? And you can kind of decide at that time, like, whether or not you're okay with that and say like, hey, no, actually, I feel like I still need your help, or, okay, cool, well, like, I'll call upon you if anything comes up, or whatever, So, you're just, like, totally in charge of those relationships. And in a lot of ways, they're, like, just normal human friendships. It just requires really clear communication. What do you want? What do you feel that you need right now? Let's see. Did I cover everything that I wanted to cover? Journey. Oh, journeying and mental health. Okay, so yes, some people get worried. They're like, oh, what if I like start? How do I know that I'm not like just becoming crazy by indulging in this? The thing about people who have serious delusional mental illnesses is that they are not in control of their journey experience. They are not in control of their psychic abilities. They are unable or unwilling. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't work with people like that. There's something where they're not able to turn down their psychic senses. They're not able to tune out that information, right? Most of us are able to, like when we're focused on something, right? You sometimes you have to tune out the television, or if you're on a bus and you're trying to read a book, you got to tune out all this noise. Some people are not able to tune out psychic noise. Some people are not able to tune out extra energies that are coming into them. And that's when it starts to become like a mental health issue. If you are finding that you're not in control of these things and you're not able to turn them on and off, then it's probably not a good idea to develop them further. And I don't want to say that definitively though. Should definitely talk with your doctor about it. You can work with a doctor that has a spiritual orientation similar to yours that can probably help you with that. But yeah, just you know, that's kind of tough to say though too, right? Because when we believe our delusions, like we believe them. So also just being aware that like, hey, the people around you want what's best for you, and they're never like, they might not like your woo-woo stuff, but if somebody's telling you like, hey, you're really going off the deep end, like, yeah, I really recommend you go see a doctor or a clinician. Like, people don't say that just because they disagree with your religious point of view, right? They say that when they're worried about like you being healthy. And I mean, you do have to sort of weed through some people that will say, well, if you believe in magic, that's you're obviously insane because science and stuff, right? That's a different type of bias that sometimes you have to deal with too. But you know, having discernment in your own relationships to know like who can I trust to be honest with me about this type of thing, having that support network. And as we go through, and the more you interact with your intuition, the more you take action on your intuition, the more you learn to trust yourself to know the difference between intuition and other things, anything else. Like, it could be ego, it could be psychosis, it could be shadow, right? But the more you have contact with this divine space within yourself, the more you recognize what is and what isn't that. Okay, so I feel like this has gotten really long. Let me make sure that I covered everything I wanted to cover. Alright, yeah. So I will be sending you a PDF with a lot of this information summarized as well. Please let me know if you have any questions or any difficulty with the journeying. I did link in that resource document to 15-minute journeys. You can also just search for the author's name, Michael Harner and Sandra Ingerman, I think are the two that I gave you. You can search them on the YouTube, and they have 15-minute journeys, they have 30-minute journeys, they have some really good resources talking about journeying, so I highly recommend looking into that. But all you're going to do is, click on the link, put on your headphones. I have had success both on the speaker or on headphones, so that's kind of up to your preference. I find that if you're somebody who is really easily distracted by noises and things around you, the headphones are definitely the better option. Again, you can do any kind of movement you want. You can even walk and listen to it if you want. Sometimes that's really helpful for me. And then just kind of let energy flow. Let whatever needs to come up, come up. Set that intention beforehand, or you can also like purify yourself if you want. Take a nice cleansing shower or bath. I definitely recommend setting your space so that it's like a nice, cozy, warm space that makes you feel secure, right? For a lot of us, very early in life, the environment around us became not safe, right? And so a lot of times when we're creating sacred space, it's really about creating that safety for us to go into that deep transformative work. Nobody changes unless they feel safe, right? We can't be fluid and flexible unless we have this this feeling of safety, right? Unless we feel secure to do so and to be vulnerable. So really creating an environment where you feel relaxed, where you aren't going to be interrupted, where it's like your time. And then, yeah, listening to the track, seeing what comes up for you, journaling about it afterwards. Some people find it helpful to like, if they are just going to like be seated or whatever, or laying down. Some people find it helpful to actually like wear a blindfold or put on an eye mask. Shamans are considered to be those who can see in the dark or who see through their heart. So a lot of the information is really going to come through in that third eye space or in the heart space. At least that's been my experience. I would love to hear about it if you have a different experience. And then, yeah, it's during our session, we will talk about whatever it is that comes up for you and what you feel like that means for you. And we'll kind of do some reflective exercises to dig a little deeper into whatever symbols and emotions come up for you. And I am looking forward to it. Okay, I realized I didn't tell you about how the track ends and how you come out of the journey besides coming along the same pathway and picking up your energy as you go. You're going to be listening to the drumming. It's going to be steady through like 13 minutes of the track, and then the last 2 minutes, there's going to be a pause, and then there's going to be like a couple of drum rolls like that. I think 3 or 4 of them, and then it'll be like a really fast drum roll, and that's your indication that it's time to say like thank you for your wisdom, really appreciate it, whoever you're talking to or whatever you're doing, like wrap up your activities and time to go home. And then so during that really fast part is really like time for the journey home, and then the track will end, your journey will be over, time to record whatever came up for you.